Okay, so we're gonna go through hair pieces, lace, mono, silk tops, hand tied constructions, and kind of like what you want to look for. So this PDF is actually below, so you can actually go through this. You can reread it. You can click on the links, all that kind of stuff. But essentially, when you're going through websites, you've probably heard words like lace front, monofilament, silk top, French front, drawn, hand tied, double mono, polyurethane, and it can very quickly start to feel like another language. You know that you need hair, but you've got absolutely no idea what you're actually buying. And unfortunately, that's where people end up getting really bad pieces like this, and where it looks really, really fake because you don't know what you're looking for. Some of these really bad pieces can actually appear to be quite expensive too. So it's really, really important that you understand what it is that you're looking for. You can always book a consultation with me. We'll do live virtual calls if you're not local, or you can come into the studio if you're local and you can actually try things on. But the first two questions we need to ask is like, what is the foundation of the hairpiece actually made from? And the second is, how is the hair attached to the foundation? They're not the same things. So, for example, a wig can have a lace front. So, for example, this one here, this one has the lace has actually been cut on it. But this one has a lace front, if you guys can see that. Okay. Very, very see-through. Before they are cut, what they look like is this. Hang on, I've got too many pieces here. Oh, yeah. Okay. So before they're cut, they look like this. Like a graveyard of hair beside me. So before they're cut, they look like this. Okay. So all of this comes up. Okay. And then we physically remove it. When a product arrives, typically the lace will still be intact. And that's because they want you to know that the product is new. If you ask us to remove it, we will remove it for you. There is an extra fee for that, just so you know. Okay. Now, something can have a lace front, which is what I just showed you, or something can be hand tied, which basically means that it's like hand tied one by one. It can also be lace front and hand tied, or it can be lace front and machine wefted. Okay. So machine weft basically means that a actual like sewing machine has injected all the hair. There's less custom ability with it. You can't like move it back and forth quite as much. It's still a knot foundation, but it's just not as versatile. Then we have situations like this, right? Where it's not a lace front. You see, like, I can't see the scalp through that. If I put my finger behind it, it's not see-through at all. Okay. Now this one, just looking at it, looks like it's probably like a monofilament, which basically means like it's a thicker, like polyurethane cap on it. Okay. So knots. The first thing to know about knots is you don't necessarily know what's happening in them. So in a piece like this, it still looks like it's knotted, but there's absolutely no way for me to actually see what's happening because it's like inside the material. In traditional hand-tied or ventilated pieces, the hair is literally attached to a mesh foundation, and like that hair is literally pulled through that, and it's like used a hook to knot it. Okay. On higher quality hand-tied constructions, the process can be incredibly detailed. Most of the time, with a lot of the pieces that we use, it's actually hand done. Okay. So hair is individually tied or in very small groups or individually. So it moves independently instead of behaving like a large curtain. So like this way, that's why you can take the hair and you can move the part line from here, like over here, or like you could do a zigzag part if you wanted, because every batch of hair is so small. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the camera, but if you look here, it's like I can take this hair and I can go like this. Okay. Now, you see on this one how it kind of creates more of like a bump, like it doesn't want to go quite as well. It's because it's done in larger batches versus on this piece here. See how it's much smaller? So I can take this piece and I can move it over. You see how it doesn't like create that like bump loop here. Okay. So skilled ventilators use a tiny hook to pull through hair through, like I mentioned. Jean Reno, for example, describes fully hand-tied construction as having individual hairs tied to create the appearance of natural growth and more realistic movement. But here's where it gets interesting. And not all knots are the same. So smaller single knots tend to be less conspicuous, which makes them useful in visible areas such as the hairline. Our halos, for example, are a really, really great option of that. Like they're virtually undetectable. And when you get them in person, you can see even more. But like you really can't see them. Okay. But some systems have larger knots, like that one I just showed you here. It's got larger knots. Then when you get into like dark versus light, the knots may also appear to be darker on these. So this one is again lace, but the lace has been cut. I don't know if it's going to let me show it on camera, but you can see a little bit more of that because it's a darker construction. This one still has a lot of mobility in it. So these are our sovereign core, which are smaller knots. Okay, so it creates more versatility. So the strengths of lace. Lace can provide, and I'll let you like read through this. I know I'm just kind of going off on a tangent. So lace can provide extremely natural hairline, natural movement, but the limitation of it is like the material is just weaker. So it does need to be more careful when it's handled. You can't just like flop it around. You need to make sure that you're storing it on a proper system, like that kind of stuff. And then you may also hear people talk about bleach knots. So chemically lightening the knots in darker hair can reduce the dark knot appearance. But the big thing to know with this is that the chemical process can also reduce the strength of the knot. So invisibility and longevity can also become a trade-off. And this is exactly why I don't like blanket statements like lace is the most natural wear. For the hairline, possibly for the part, maybe against what scalp color, okay? And then we get construction pieces that have partial knots or partial lace, but then don't have a lace base. So this is our signature crown, for example. So he's got a lace front up here, but then he does not have lace under here. So he actually becomes more of like a mono base under here. Okay. So monos tend to be a little bit more pillowy. They create a little bit more volume. Now, big things to keep in mind is like, what is the hair color? What knots? What does your hair look like? Does your hair have texture to it? Does it not? All of these pieces can actually be custom made with different textures. If they're not on our website and you're looking for a particular texture, please send us a message too or book a consultation because we can also do custom orders too. We're in the process of getting all of our e-commerce up and going, but there's a lot of work. Shout out to the girls who are working on that because it seems tedious as fuck. Then we've got single monofilament. So relatively fine, allows your natural scalp color to show through the mesh. The translucency can combine to a very believable result. The downside is that the single layer can sometimes feel different against the scalp depending on the particular material and the wearer sensitivity. Then you have double monofilament. So it's another soft layer placed underneath the hand-tied area. The purpose is generally greater comfort with a softer barrier between the knots or mesh or scalp. This one can reduce the naturalness, though. It creates more like shadowing. So premium manufacturers specifically market double mono hand-tied custom constructions towards sensitive scalp wearers. The obvious trade-off is adding another layer adds material. Okay. So again, it's not double mono is better. It's do you need enough comfort to justify the added structure? We're going to go into silk tops and French drawn construction. So this is one of the most interesting constructions. The silk top, you may hear terminology such as French drawn. The reason people get excited about this construction is scalp illusion. In French drawn design, the hair is still hand tied, but the knots are concealed between layers of material. So instead of looking down at just the part and seeing like tiny knots, you're looking at smooth scalp colored surfaces that appear, the hair feels thin enough to emerge at the part. So a major advantage of this is if you're trying to hide knots rather than trying to make knots disappear, it's a meaningful difference. With traditional lace or single monofilament, you're looking at the base towards the scalp with the knots to be sufficiently discreet. With a layered silk or French drawn construction, though, the knots are basically like buried inside of it. So it can create an exceptionally clean looking part. I'm torn. I'm a silk girl. I really like silk. Okay. Because there's a downside. You're adding layers. Construction can be more substantial than fine or lace mono. Gorgeous looking parts doesn't automatically solve other problems. I feel like, and this is just my opinion, that silk blends in better with most fine hair clients. Okay. And then again, you got to go back and think about the front hairline. You got to think about the density. You got to think about where the hair is being attached. So we actually have certain pieces that like literally just sit around the hairline. And if French drawn, they'd be way too thick. I don't actually have one on me. Then we've got fully tied hand caps. So it's another term that gets confused with the materials themselves. Hand tied is a construction method. Okay. Now, as a hairdresser too, this is where like it can be frustrating for me because people will sometimes come in and they say like, I want this technique. But at the end of the day, it's my job to determine the best technique to get you the goal that you want. So just because you think you want like a balayage doesn't mean you actually want a balayage. You want your hair to naturally be lighter at the ends. It doesn't actually have the context of like whether it's open air, free hand painted or not. Like I can achieve the same look with a different material. So it comes down to the craftsmanship, the cost, and like what actually makes sense. At the end of the day, somebody has to create everything. Okay. And you're paying for much more labor intensive construction. And hand tied doesn't mean indestructible. So you're dealing with like individually anchored hair, rough brushing, aggressive washing, friction, and poor maintenance can definitely shorten the piece of any lifestyle. Then you've got machine wefted or open cap construction. So wefted wigs tend to be the cheapest option, so that you know what a wefted wig looks like. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but wefted wigs they have the weft like inside. Okay. So for context and extension, there is wefts. And I don't have any of these with me either, but a weft is like a long strip of hair. Okay. And what they do is they get like a cap and then they sew it around. In many of these cases with a wefted wig one, you'll get like almost like a swirly pop. This one here, for context, is also a weft, but this one's a slightly different weft. This is that other crappy, cheap one that I often show. So this is a weft as well, but it's a bunch of wefts that have like holes. I don't think the camera here is doing it justice, but I can like poke my fingers through this. So this one doesn't have a cap per se underneath. It's just finely constructed. Actually, it makes sense to shoot. So it's finely constructed wefts that are like attached versus this one actually has like a cap underneath. So if you were going to change your color, you'd be better to have a cap system versus like an integration system. Now, neither of these are good pieces, to clarify. They're kind of just like demo pieces. And then when you look at these as well, you got to look at the attachment anchors too. So some of them will have clips like this. Others don't have anything. With our Sovereign cores, for example, which are my favorite wig collection, they actually have clips. So they're very, very secure. They're not moving. And then they've got an adjustable strap too. So that if you've got a tiny, tiny head, you can also tether the strap around the back too. Okay. Then we've got polyurethane or skin bases. So polyurethane, often shortened to PU, is it like a silicone? And I'll have to do a whole other training, I think, on this. But it's one of the big ones that are trending right now. There is what are they calling it? I can't even think of what they're calling it, but there's a lot of the ones where they're like gluing it down to natural hair, or like men's topper systems. Those typically tend to be PU. They're typically put around like the perimeter. They can be used for like things like mesh integration as well as like anchoring points. They are plasticky, for lack of a better term. Okay. They are used with bonded systems. So they're typically glued in. Hair can be attached to a skin style base different than a traditional lace. Okay. So instead of always trying visible knots, very thin polyurethane systems may use techniques such as V-looping or injection. An injection is almost like a needle, and that needle like pushes it in. Okay. It can eliminate the appearance of a traditional knot and can give it a very convincing scalp effect, but knotless, again, doesn't always mean better. Traditional knots provide a mechanical anchor. Very fine V-looped or injected constructions provide invisibility, but manufacturers themselves acknowledge these attachments require better, just gentler handling. So again, realism versus durability. The trade-off keeps showing up because hairpiece engineering is largely about deciding where you want to sit on the spectrum. One of the biggest mistakes consumers make, though, is they look at the product listing and they go, human hair, lace front, monotop, and they assume that they know the quality. You want to know more still, like, how is the hair ventilated? How large are the knots? Are they single or double? These are where consultations are so important too. Like companies that will actually stand behind what they're selling and like talk to you, I think is really important. When you buy a hairpiece, it's not a cheap investment if you're buying something decent. And when you go to just a website alone and you don't actually have a relationship with that company, you don't have that protection that like they're going to honor it if it doesn't go through. You can absolutely go to our website, but like I would recommend booking a virtual consult, to be quite honest. Just to make sure that we can get you the right one. Or you go through these documents and you like watch the trainings and you really understand like what it is that you want. Like we show you a lot of things. So again, to reiterate, which base is best? And this here, I'm going to actually put, again, this is down below for you. I'm going to put our booking link right here too. Shout out to Tex Blaze right here. I'm also going to drop this because I'm literally talking about it right now. If you are a business owner, this is a really cool way to just save yourself a shit ton of time when it comes down to, you can put, what is the code on it? ZT, please. If you remember your codes, ZA, please. I'm totally going off on a total different tangent here, but just say you Z, please. So you can like stick links in really, really quickly without having to like search for them. This gives you like a free month if you want to play with it. Anyway, total squirrel thought. So which base is best? Again, to reiterate, there isn't one. So if your number one concern is extremely believable, exposed hairline, hand-tied knots may be important. If your priority is a believable scalp, flexible parting monofilament may make an enormous sense. If you're seeing knots in the part bothers you and scalp lesion is your highest priority, French drawn or silk style construction may be worth considering. We do not have that currently. I am a silk girl. It's just a personal bias. Okay. If you have significant scalp sensitivity, double monofilament created hand tie construction may be preferable. And again, if you want something specific, we can also source. So please reach out. So if you're constantly hot or you're looking for something, an airnet might actually be a really good option. So our airnets, I don't have one on me, but essentially it's kind of like a hybrid between a wig and a topper. And it's got a construction similar to this thing in the sense of like, I can put my finger through it without the garbageness of the wig. It looks more like this with a lace front. It's a beautiful piece. That could be a really good option for you. The biggest thing though, that like we just kind of want to reiterate here is like personal fit matters more than the label. A beautiful hairpiece that is wrong for you in your life is still the wrong piece. It might be a beautiful piece and there might be nothing wrong with the piece, but if it's not the right one, it's not going to be good. Imagine going to the store and you're a size medium and you buy a size small. It's not the right t-shirt for you, right? It doesn't fit. Okay. Or say you are, I don't know, going hiking on a mountain and you put on, booty shorts. Like it doesn't work. Okay. Somebody else may want a primarily frontal piece. Another woman may still have substantial biological hair and only needs a small topper. Another may need full coverage. One woman may be perfectly happy clipping her piece in every morning. Another may be desperately wanting something that feels more integrated into her day. One woman may prioritize realism. Another may say, I don't really care. The inside looks impressive. I just need this thing to survive my schedule. Women should not automatically be wearing the same thing. And that's why the goal isn't to find the internet's highest rated wig. It's to find the right one and to understand your scalp, your hair, your coverage, your lifestyle, your tolerance, your maintenance, then choose the construction that solves your problem. So if you're tired of buying hair pieces and hoping it works and you want somebody to acknowledge and help you determine what coverage makes sense, base construction and attachment appropriately actually makes sense, book your consultation there. If you're not local, make sure you click the virtual link. And then I just want to give you some facts. Okay. So major construction claims supported by current industry documentation. So hand-tied caps are used individually vented knots to create more natural movement and the appearance of individual hair growth. Monofilament tops are designed to create a scalp-like appearance and allow multi-directional partings. French drawn or silk style constructions hide hand-tied knots between layers to produce continuous scalp illusion. So that's kind of more like what this crappy wig is. Smaller knots generally provide greater discretion, while double knots or larger ones can provide greater security. Open weft caps provide greater ventilation than more closed constructions. Polyurethane can be incorporated into systems for adhesive attachment, while very thin bases may be used with V-looped or injected hair rather than traditional visible knots. Important limitations. Terminology is not perfectly standardized across every manufacturer. Terms such as silk top, French drawn, skin, hand tied, and even monofilament may describe somewhat different proprietary constructions depending on the company. And this also is marketing. Okay. So construction alone does not determine whether a hairpiece is high quality or suitable for an individual hair quality, density, color work, cap sizing, knotting, quality, ventilation, directions, attachment, customization, and appearance all matter. Getting reviews is important. Right now, as I'm filming this, we have over 100 5-star reviews on our Google, and I'm sure that number is going to increase. So feel free to check that out. And then current construction information was cross-checked primarily against John Radio's cap design and production documentation, also my own industry knowledge, and Ellie Whitland's current wig construction documentation and current specialist hair system manufacturing resources describing ventilation and knotting techniques. So if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in our community as well. The community is where we are most active with our people. So really, really important that if you have a question, it's asked there, because a lot of times other people have literally the exact same question and it just takes one person to help everyone.